Hey, we're back. This is John.
Hey, it's Paul.
And it's Eric.
And it's What If Geeks. And we are here with episode 4 of WandaVision. We interrupt this broadcast. And if we thought shit happened in episode 3, shit happens in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I will go on record as saying, as I watch this episode, usually like when it comes to like shit they're gonna do in some of these movies, we joke around like Mandalorian, right, with Luke and this and that, whatever. I was able to sit here and be like, "Ha, I was right," and you guys are like, "Yeah, you called it." The whole time I'm watching this episode, I'm going, "Eric called it. Eric called it. Eric called it." I felt like that kid in the Simpsons, in South Park, when he was like, "Simpsons." Because, man, you called so much in this fucking episode. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of confirmation on a lot of things we've talked about and speculated about. It's pretty amazing, actually. I'm glad, though, in a way. I mean, it's not like it's been predictable, but, there's just we threw a lot of theories out there, to be fair. I mean, it's stuff we're wrong about. So
we threw a lot of shit at the wall.
Yeah.
Eventually, some of it sticks.
Yeah, this is stuck. So, all right, yeah. So I guess I'll start us off, then you guys can kind of chime in and take over from me when you're tired of hearing my voice. The show opens with Monica Rambeau rematerializing, and it took me a second to realize what the hell was going on.
Yeah, me too.
Last time you see her, you got ejected out of Westview. So I was like, I don't know if she's dreaming, whatever.
I thought it was a new open. I thought it was some kind of weird cold open where the things came together and
yeah.
I was like, oh, we're not doing. I was expecting like an '80s open, and I was like, oh,
right.
I was a bit thrown off too. I watched it with Becca and Reagan both, and about the third person that sort of pieced in, I had to pause it because neither of them has seen Endgame.
Oh.
And so that was the moment, though, I realized, like, oh, this is the snapback.
Yep.
Right. So
so then I had to explain that whole thing to him before we carried on.
Yeah. It doesn't take them like you said, it takes them literally 15 seconds in there. But she's rematerializing after Hulk's snap in Endgame when he brought everybody back. And we'll get into it further, but I remember during Endgame or after Endgame came out, the Russos had gone out, press conferences, whatever, and when people talked about it, they were like, oh, yeah, it was pretty peaceful. Everybody was brought back peacefully. And this shows it's not necessarily the case. I mean, it wasn't really like horrible, but there was some little snippets in here where like as she's coming back, you hear almost like she's waking up from a dream, but like you hear like voices, and it's from Captain Marvel. There's shots in there from voices from Captain Marvel where they're talking about how her mother was going to have to leave her behind, and she told her mother, it's okay, Grandma can take care of me. And then you hear Captain Marvel call her Captain Trouble, So there's a little callback to Captain Marvel and, kind of like what that's all about. And then she comes out of the room because she realized she's in a hospital room. She walks out of the room and she starts asking somebody where her mother is. And that's when you start to see everybody coming back. And like there's like in the background, there's like a dude rematerializes right next to a hospital bed, and the girl on the bed is looking at him like, who the fuck are you? Because it's been 5 years. So it's not the same person.
It's pretty clear that everyone materializes back where they left from, right? Like she was there with her mom at the time, and that's where she snapped out. And now she's back. Same place.
Yeah. So which kind of calls back to a joke we made before about like if people were flying on planes or they're just rematerializing in the air or whatever. So if we allow the conceit that maybe Hulk was smart enough to wish or whatever, however the stones work, anyone who would be in immediate danger was safely on the ground or what have you. But then everybody else just kind of materializes where they were. I'll give them that one, because everything else is damn near perfect in this universe. But yeah, so all these people are coming back in the hospital, and she's asking this nurse or the doctor, her mother's doctor, hey, where is my mother? And the doctor's like trying to deal with everybody else coming back, and with her panicking. And she's like, hang on. She's like, you've been gone for 5 years. And she's like, no, I was just in that room with my mother. Which, again, calls back to like Spider-Man when he came back. You realize in Spider-Man Far From Home that they came back basically the moment they think it's the moment they left, but it was 5 years later. So we find out that her mother died 3 years ago from that moment. And she says, no, she was fine. You just gave her a clean bill of health. And the doctor says, you disappeared, and she went downhill after that. And, 2 years later, her cancer came back, and then she died, So I'm wondering if maybe like that voiceover was talking about a mission her mother was going to go on, and that's where she got her cancer, or what, But you may find that out later, like in Captain Marvel 2 or whatever. But who knows? They may not even touch on it. But she died of cancer 3 years prior to everybody coming back, or the blip, or whatever they're going to call it.
Yeah, the blip. That is what they're calling it.
Yeah, or the reverse blip, or whatever.
Yeah, there's a
crawl on one of the when they're in. I think it's in the hospital, or no, it's in Sword headquarters.
Sword headquarters, yeah, the next scene.
TV screen.
Yeah, because that's what we cut to.
There's news
yeah,
on
it says the blip returns loved ones or something like that. So I don't know why. I guess nobody would know it was a snap, but I'm not going to stop calling it the snap.
Yeah, and it makes sense. They had to come up with a name for it, so blip is.
Despite everything, I'm a little. They don't have time, granted, but I'm a little annoyed by the fact that she's like almost entirely unfazed by everything. It's like, I mean, she's making faces like, "Oh, my mom's dead. What the hell?" And then 10 minutes later, she's over at Sword headquarters trying to badge into the building.
Well, I think some time has passed.
Yeah, perhaps
3-ish weeks, something like that.
Yeah, so some weeks have passed since she came back, because that was enough time for the thing in Westview to happen.
Right.
It's just I know it's at one point we either did or we talked about doing an episode of what if the snap really happened, and now we almost have to do what if the snap back happened, because there's so much that you just have to hand wave away with people that are dead reappearing and like.
Well, you know what? Let's just make it a combo episode.
Well, we did that. No, we did that episode. What would happen?
Yeah,
we did what would happen if the snap happened, but now. Yeah. Right now.
Okay, yeah, let's do a follow-up after WandaVision ends. We'll do a follow-up, like right in between that and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So it's going to be, what if the snap back really happened? Because, like, something's wrong here. I mean, it's just pretty much, okay, so it's a few weeks, whatever. Everything's kind of back to normal. And
it makes sense, though, because if it's a few, like, say 3 or 4 weeks, right, after they come back. Now, granted, she's rushing to get back to Sword or whatever, to dive back into what's going on there. But that's just enough time for what we've been discussing to happen, is Wanda realizing she doesn't have anything and have a mental breakdown and gets into what Eric called. We'll get into that later. But, yeah, we cut to Sword headquarters, and Monica's in an office, and she's talking with Tyler Haywood, who's the acting director, and you can see she's got a necklace that's got the sword pendant, which is what Wanda sees in that episode earlier, but later.
Well, before that, when she tries to badge in and it doesn't work, and the guy at the desk is a bit of a dick. He's like,
right.
I work here. So, well, if you did, your card would work.
Have you guys ever worked at a badge facility? Oh, John works in one every day. Like, nobody's gonna fucking say that to you. They're gonna be like, "Let me check the badge out and see what's wrong." Yeah. Like, hey, you don't fucking work here. What do you mean I don't work here?
Right, yeah.
And then as Hayward comes and gets her, the pan by is the plaque, like her mom's plaque.
Yeah, and it says photon on the plaque.
Yeah. Which is another one of Monica's call signs in the comics.
Yeah, so we're I don't remember why. Oh yeah, because I think this is leading to the some version of the Monica Rambeau that will be pulsar and all that, right? I mean,
yeah,
we're heading in that direction at least, and then they're just sort of dropping little hints along the way.
Yeah, and is it just me, or does Haywood strike everybody as a little off? A little bit, right?
Just like, I mean, it definitely seems weird. The whole setup with oh yeah, welcome back, Captain Rambo, but you're gonna have to go work with the FBI. Like, what the fuck?
Right, like he's trying to get her out of the way.
Yeah.
Basically, like he's taking over like whatever job she should have had. And if you notice in the background of his office, his certificates are in a hex form.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they're in the shape of a hexagon.
He seemed to be right out of Central Casting as sort of douchey boss.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gives her a little bit of a tour. Huh?
I wonder if there's more to him, like maybe he's working with...
Well, there definitely might be something, because if you remember on the... he says, oh, you've been gone for a few weeks and you're the first one to show back up or report in or whatever. And then he takes her on like a mini tour, like through some warehouses and shit. And she says something to the effect of like, it says observation and response, not creation. And then he's like, oh, well, it's a different world than when you left.
Yeah. What were they doing before? Which, and obviously because we know through Captain Marvel that Sword/Shield, whatever, knows about Skrulls and this and that and whatever. So they've been doing something. So it makes me wonder if it's, again, when we'll lead more into that later, but could it have to do with the Weapon Plus facility or any of that shit? Even what happens with the Fantastic Four later, who knows? Right. But that's when she asks about the manned space missions. She asks, how's that going? And he said, not great. Half of my people died, and then the other half that came back from the blip have lost their nerves, so they don't want to do it, which is something Paul said. Maybe they're leaning on, that being Fantastic Four later, which you do see like a giant hangar outside that could be for spacecraft.
Right.
So could also be like them setting up for like 2 years later when you have Far From Home and Nick Fury is up in space. That could be where they launch from.
Mm-hmm.
It could all be tied to that, and it could all be nothing. But so he tells her, hey, you're going to go work on this missing person case with the FBI. And she's like, that's not really our thing. And he's, well, they asked for us. So she heads out to go check that out. And that's when you find out why they asked for them, because there's something really weird going on. And she pulls up outside of the marker for Westview. And Jimmy Woo, the FBI agent, comes to meet her. And it's really cool because he comes up, he's like, Jimmy Woo, FBI, and he does the little sleight of hand card trick that he learned from Scott Lang in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He asked him, how'd you do the card trick? And then like you see him again later on practicing it. So he's learned it. So it's a nice little callback to that. But so basically he kind of fills her in like, we got a missing person, but when I ask around, none of his family even knows he exists. Which is because she's like, family hasn't seen him, and he's like, no, they don't even know about him. Like it's not like he doesn't even exist anymore. So, and he goes, it's not the only thing. And he goes, come here. And they go to the cops, and they're like, you mind repeating what you told me about Westview? And the cops are like, there's no such place. And they're looking right at the sign for Westview,
right
behind the cops.
I think before that, they show her driving, and she gets off the turnpike, or she gets off something, and it says entering New Jersey. And in our last episode,
yes,
Eric mentioned, well, there's a Westview, New Jersey.
And it was West New Jersey, yeah.
Yep. And he also said there's a base close by there in the MCU, or there's a base in Jersey in the MCU that Captain America trained at, yada, yada. So we said maybe Wanda went there to the base and then took over the town of Westview, and lo and behold, that's what looks like it happened.
Perhaps something along those lines.
Maybe not by herself, but definitely, I bet she started it, and then it kind of escalated from there. Other sinister forces maybe realized what was going on and decided to manipulate it to their effects or whatever. I can't think of a good word. Words have escaped me. I'm getting old. Yeah, so the cops say Westview doesn't exist, and the two of them look right at the sign, and they look back at the cops. Very, very meta. Like, where are you from? And they say Eastview. So, and I'm wondering if there are a lot of places like that where you'll have West End, East End, this, that, whatever. Is there really an Eastview, or are these Westview cops that got pushed out of Westview, or maybe were outside the city limits at the time, and because Wanda did this whole thing, they're brainwashed as well?
Maybe.
Who knows? So, all right, moving on. Oh, yeah, okay, so then Monica and Jimmy decide they're going to send a drone helicopter to go check out the area.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, well, because they're not sure exactly what's going on, so they're like, well, let's take a look, And she pulls out the drone helicopter, and it's a little sword drone.
It's a little sword drone with Captain Marvel color scheme on
it. Yeah. Yeah. It was very obvious.
Yeah.
They set this thing up, and as it leaves them, it just vanishes, just disappears. And they're like, where the hell did it go? We know that that's the model toy helicopter that Wanda finds in the bushes in episode 2. So that's where that comes from. So obviously anything from the outside world that comes in is getting warped by this this barrier. So they don't know. They lose signal on the thing. It's gone. And is that when they cut to Darcy and the rest of them?
I think. There's something else.
She goes up to it.
Yes,
you can see the barrier.
Oh.
She sort of puts her hand, and then as she goes through it, she gets slurped in.
Yeah, she definitely gets sucked right in, and it's a very staticky looking barrier.
Yeah. And then it cuts to this transport vehicle. It says 24 hours later, and here's the only the biggest question I had in this whole thing, and I'll ask you guys because you were both in the military. 24 hours later, they have 4 civilian professionals driving to what looks like an emergency response base. This is not the old Army base that Cap trained at. This is a forward, quick emergency response base that has giant lights set up. There's tents. The whole thing's set. Everything's put together. So they did it in no time at all. And I was kind of
depending on how many people they had working on it, it's feasible.
Could you have requisitioned any of that stuff to get anywhere in 24 hours, let alone put out and set up?
I'll say this. So it's a little impractical. However, that general concept actually exists. So you ever heard of Broken Arrow? Like lost nuclear warhead thing, right? So that's a real live thing, and the government set up, I think it was called NEST, Nuclear Emergency Support Team, but they set up a response unit, or several actually, to deal with Broken Arrow incidents if they happen. And they were actually made up of a lot of different civilians, like doctors that specialize in radiation and all these other rando things. And these people these people are actually on call and would really truly respond to stuff like this, even though they themselves weren't. So that little sort of that idea, that concept that you could have an emergency response force is a real thing that exists. Now, of course, it doesn't exist in this, and it's a little impractical that they'd have a building set up. It would probably be a GP medium tent or something.
Yeah, if you extrapolate it to what's been going on in the MCU and everything else, whatever, with Tony Stark's technology and all this other shit, maybe. Sure.
That's the only thing I was 24 hours? Oh. I don't doubt that you could get civilians somewhere and get them up and moving in 24 hours, but you're not the entire base area that was set up and plugged in and all the stuff worked in 20 hours.
No,
unless
ask me later. Ask me later off this episode, because I actually know a person that was on a nuclear response team. The guy's like 60, but and had to respond to a real incident. He is not a military person. He is a civilian that was on one of these teams. I'll tell you the whole thing he told me some other time, not on this.
Well, allowing for the fact that they probably have tabs on those scientists anyway, and the fact that whether or not they actually have full access to Hank Pym's technology, they could be driving around with a whole base in a suitcase.
I hadn't thought about
that. I mean, I'm giving them a little bit. We'll give them some, because when last we watched Endgame, Hank Pym was working with the government there, so I know he ran away with his technology for the suit, but
yeah, they could have had it all set up and like miniaturized and just like put it out and
yeah.
I'll give you that.
Back in the day, in the comic days, Marvel used to have no prizes. You guys ever remember those? Eric, you probably don't.
Don't remember that.
It was way back in like the 70s and 80s. Basically, it would be like if you see an error in a comic, you write in, because they had the letters page at the end, and they would have if you can explain what the quote unquote error is, because Marvel never makes mistakes, so you can explain it away to fit into the universe, they offer you a no prize, which basically means you're getting nothing. Right. But so I'll take my no prize.
And so in the back of the transport is some Kat Dennings and 3 other pseudo scientists. There's a astrobiologist and somebody else, a mechanical engineer. So they get her there, they get her set up, and she starts doing her sciencey stuff and finds that there's cosmic CMBR, cosmic
microwave background radiation.
Yeah.
Which is the radiation present at the Big Bang, and she brings out this old oscilloscope, right? Puts it on the desk, starts to fiddle, and then she gets the picture to kind of come out, and it's episode 1.
Yeah. So she's like, I need a TV, an old one, not a flat one.
Right.
So they get her all set up, and I guess now, since you mentioned the waves and the Big Bang, would be a good time to drop my theory on. We've been discussing if this is a way they can push mutants or any of that. And I think we already kind of covered our theory on the Fantastic Four. But with the Big Bang in Infinity War, Wong tells the story of how the Big Bang created the Infinity Stones and launched them out into the world, which would allow for why this radiation is coming, because Wanda got her powers from an Infinity Stone. There's also been, like we said before, 3 snaps using all the Infinity Stones. So this radiation could have just pulsated all over the place, creating mutants, like we said. So I think this might be part of the lead-in to where the mutants are coming from. Or at least it's a running theory.
Possible. I would also like
as Darcy Lewis would say.
State just for the record that I use oscilloscopes in my job and spectrum analyzers, and you can buy them a little bit bigger than your phone handheld. So I'm not sure why the hell she's carrying around a 1960s era oscilloscope with a screen on it, but this is after setting up an advanced base in a emergency response team, and then just pull out this 80-pound measurement device that's freaking 60 years old.
Yeah. But she says something that's key in here too. When they get the signal in, and they see the episode 1 of WandaVision, and she sees Wanda and Vision, she's like, "Look, I know her." She's like, "I know the world is really weird right now, but he's dead, right?" Like, what she said, not blipped, dead. and they all look like. So they ask, what are we looking at? And she's like, as far as I can tell, a TV show. And Jimmy says, starring 2 Avengers. And she says, it's a working theory. Yeah. And that may be a separate scene later, but it's in there, so we'll just go with that.
Yeah, I think right around here too is the point where we see the little display thing in the middle of the emergency response building that they set up, and it's a hexagon, as you pointed out in the thing. I didn't actually notice that the first run through, but hexagons are a theme, and it's something we ask about. And Jimmy Woo also, when he's writing on the whiteboard, writes, "What's with the hexagons?" or something to that effect.
Yeah, well, half of his notes on the right of that, well, all of his notes on
all of his notes
board are questions that all the fans are asking about the show.
Yep.
You know, why hexagons? Is what's up with Vision? Is he dead? You know, that kind of shit. Why TV shows? You know, all that.
That was very cool and meta. Like, yes, we're asking the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I like the scene, and I think it's coming. Like, they just start watching it. They're just watching it like it's a show.
And some of them are like really into it, eating popcorn and shit.
Yeah. And then they're like, okay, who's that? And then they start figuring out, all right, so-and-so is playing the role of Herb.
Yeah, they start with the hearts. And
so-and-so is Mrs. Hart. So-and-so is Mr. Hart.
And now two things on that. Now one, Eric, when you said the thing is a hexagon, you're talking about the entire barrier, right?
Yeah, the barrier around the town, yeah, they show that. Well, they show that on the map, but then they also show it again later when they're like analyzing, whatever the fuck they're doing, who knows, but analyzing the area or whatever. They show that hexagon shape again around the outside edge of the town. I mean, it's like a perfect square hexagon. It's not like there's no interpretation to be made. I mean, it is a hexagon, and those hexagons have showed up in the fake credits for the show, like the opening scenes and stuff. When they did the Brady Bunch-esque thing, it was like one big hexagon, three little ones. We keep seeing it, and it doesn't mean anything to me.
One, hexagons are associated with the devil, so it could be Mephisto. But also, Wanda's powers in the comics are called hex powers.
Hexing, yeah. Her mutant powers, her X gene powers are the hex powers, right?
Yeah, hex powers. So it could be a nod to that. It could be a nod to both. Something else Jimmy writes on the board is under the possible perpetrators, he says Skrulls, which tells you that even though in Captain Marvel, you see the Skrulls as good guys, we mentioned that in this show before too. Not all the Skrulls are going to be good because, eventually down the line, they've talked about Secret Invasion coming up too, which deals with the Skrulls invading Earth. So they would know, Sword would know that there are factions of the Skrulls that can't be trusted or have been doing bad shit, whatever. So they're on the board as possible behind this shit. And the other thing on there is, two things. Under the people, one was under Norm's file. If you pause it and read it, and I got this from another YouTube channel, it says that whatever his real name is, he's worried about his parents, and you learn that when Vision awakens him. And you don't see that leading up to now. So is that something that we're going to see happen? Which, and then that goes back to the trailer. The first trailer you see for this show, way before it started, was there are scenes like after it cuts into like them in their Halloween costumes or whatever, he walks up to a car and Agnes is in it and he touches her head and she jolts awake kind of like, or alert, and says, "Am I dead?" And he says, "No, why?" And she says, "Because you are," and laughs, right? Could Norm being awoken happen next episode, or is it just something they're just going to say, yeah, it happens, But so that's definitely a thing that was in there. But then there's another thing. Agnes, while Agnes has a thing up there, she does not have a New Jersey identity at all. Like, there's nothing under her, which really confirms to me at least, that she's Agatha Harkness. So, and she's definitely doing something behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think she's the only one of all the town cast that they didn't put, like, they didn't have like a copy of the driver's license or whatever right underneath the thing.
They didn't have Dottie up there either yet, but it could just be that they didn't put her picture up. Agnes is the only one whose picture is up with nothing underneath it. Dottie's picture just wasn't up there at all. There's theories that either A, they just hadn't gotten to her picture yet, or that she's playing another magic user, Clea, was another one from Doctor Strange and all that, which would fit. Blonde running around, using magic. Who knows? So, all right, where are we at?
I think right around this time, after putting the pictures up, they see Monica Rambeau, and Darcy realizes immediately who it is, and she drops her cup of noodles on the ground, which I think might have been an advertisement. I'm not sure. You see all the product placements, right? You get like 10 seconds of it. Like she's eating a cup of noodles, and then about 2 seconds later, she drops it on the ground, and it stops on the noodles. And then they go back. Anyway, so she notices Monica Rambeau on the front of one of the scenes, and she's asking Jimmy something like, does she look right to you? Does she seem okay? And then, so she's asking him, like, what's going on? Is like, she under deep cover or something? Does she have to play along? Like, why is she doing this? And so they, of course, don't know. Right. And then they start doing this alternate reality, time travel. Like they're asking all these questions that everybody's asked, about why she's there and what she's doing and what's happening. But I guess Jimmy Woo knows that she got sucked into the thing. So I'm not sure why he doesn't like reveal that information to her right away.
Or maybe he did off screen.
Right. Yeah.
Because, she recognizes who it is. So she knows she's looking for her.
So then you get to the point where Darcy comes up with a theory that if they could broadcast signals into the hexagon or whatever at the same frequencies that they're coming out, they might actually be able to send a message in. So that's the next thing she's trying. They realized that the drone they had sent in earlier, they have a picture of it, had actually shown up in the show but altered, and it was in color and something was not right with it, right? So I think she tells Jimmy to get on the mic and try to talk to him. And this is the scene from episode, is it 3?
2.
Oh, 2, where they're at the little party. Yeah, 2. Yeah, it's still black and white, right? Where they're at the little party.
Every time she does the dishes, she's listening to the radio, so they're going to do it then. But then she sees the radio in the background at the meeting.
Yeah. And then so that whole scene replays out with us being able to see that it is indeed Jimmy Woo who's trying to talk through the microphone to her, and she hears it on the radio. But what they see on their end is nothing. It looks like she notices all that out. Yeah, she notices for a minute, but in her reality, at the point where she realizes something's off and she does that rewind or check back or whatever the hell it is, on the outside, they don't get to see anything. It's like it's collapsed, and they see her face, or Darcy sees her face for a second, realizing what's happening, and then it's the bloody hand. She doesn't get to see anything in between.
Yep. Yeah, which was, again, another good call on your part back when we were reviewing that episode, because you said it sounded like Jimmy Woo. So.
It was Jimmy Woo.
It was Jimmy
Woo. So I think after that, they decide to send the guy in the hazmat suit through the sewer tunnel.
Yeah. And right away, you knew what that was going to be.
Yeah, well, yeah. As soon as he put it on, I said that to Reagan. I was like, "You remember the beekeeper guy? Like, this is going to be the beekeeper guy."
Yeah. So he crawls through, and another thing, what makes me think Haywood is more than what he seems, is when Darcy explains about the radiation, she rattles off what it is because everybody looks at her funny. When she says it again in front of him, he rattles it off before she does. So, like, he already knows about all this shit. Which, again, I guess if you're up there at director level, it's your job to Nick Fury some of this shit, but still a little suspicious to me. Yeah.
But he's getting all the briefings, and then he decides he's got to leave.
Yeah.
So he didn't stay past a certain point, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, he got out of there, which makes me wonder what he's doing. Yeah. So they send beekeeper hazmat guy, and that was the thing, because he wants to send him down into the sewer, and Jimmy tells him, "We don't know if this extends subterranean."
Yeah, like, why wouldn't it?
Right.
And even if it doesn't, as soon as he tries to climb up the fucking thing, like, come on, guys, it's fine. It's fine, but
he tells him it's a dumb move, and go with it anyway, basically.
Yeah, so and they've got a line attached to the agent, when he goes through becomes like a kid's jump rope.
Yeah, that was there any significance to that? I mean, it was red, white, and blue jump rope after he went through.
No, just that it became it became something that would fit Wanda's reality.
Yeah. They also called him Agent Franklin. I don't know if that has any. I don't remember that name from anything. It doesn't ring a bell for me, but I'm always trying to look out like at everything, like I'm looking at license plates and shit, like what 1966, what the hell does that mean? Because this was on the sheriff's car. Right. But I don't think it means anything. Or like at the very beginning of the episode, they show the room number that Monica's in when she rematerializes, 104. Like, okay, that could be like a comic book. That could be a comic book number.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
No, I don't know what it is either. I'm just saying, like, I'm always like watching, like looking for the clues somewhere. Like, what is that? What the fuck is that? So anyway, I don't know who Agent Franklin is, but maybe it means something, and I just forgot.
Right. So so he pops up as the beekeeper, and then you see the little scene as he turns around, he's the beekeeper now, and you see the Wanda and Vision in the street. She says no, and then it cuts away, and you don't see him anymore. So who knows what happened to him?
Yeah, and on the outside again, they just get a blip. They don't know anything has happened.
Right. Sorry.
And then I think, right after that, I think, or really close, they cut back to the 70s version of the show inside where she realizes that Monica Rambeau is not supposed to be there, or Geraldine, as it were, is not right, not supposed to. And Geraldine has hexagon earrings, which I did not notice on the first watch through, but I'm looking right now at the episode as we're talking about it, and I see the hexagon earrings.
I didn't catch that at all. But yeah, so they cut to that scene where but now they show you what happens, right? Where basically she's like, tell Wanda she needs to calm down, and Wanda's like, no, you need to leave, and she uses her hex magic. Yeah, she's doing the hex magic. You see her hands glow, and she pushes out, literally sends Monica through the bookcase in the living room wall, through the nursery wall in the house, through the fence, and then through the barrier. So essentially, she straight back, sent her through the fourth wall, back to reality, right? So there you go. And as immediately after that, Vision walks in, right? Then they do the whole thing there. She had to leave, but then that's when you see Wanda turns around to say something to him, and the camera cuts to him.
Puts the house back together first, I think.
She puts it all back together real quick because you see she's got a panicked look on her face, like she's losing control of shit. So she puts it all back. He walks in. They do a little, Geraldine had to leave, and when she turns, you cut to Vision, and it's dead Vision.
Yeah, right after Thanos pulled the Mind Stone from his head.
Yep. Yeah.
Gap in his head. He's all palish, gray, purple looking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, eyes are glossed over with no pupils.
Yeah, and she reacts to it, almost like she's going to throw up, and puts her head down, and he says, "What's wrong?" And then she says nothing and looks back, and he's fine again.
Yeah,
as fine as he's going to be.
She takes a second to compose herself and okay, I can fix this.
Yeah.
But then you get a little bit of a weird conversation because he says to her after that, we don't have to stay here. We can go anywhere you want. It's kind of like as far as I'm concerned, he's dead, and this isn't really Vision. So this is just her sort of subconscious telling her, this isn't a real place. You made this up. You can make it up somewhere else if you want.
Right.
Yeah. And she responds with, "No, this is our home."
Yeah.
So,
and he even questions her again. He says, "Are you sure about that?" And then she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I've got everything under control."
Right. And is that when they go to sit down? Because he looks nervous as hell.
This is when we get the retake of the Monica Rambeau thing. As she gets ejected and the cars roll up and everybody's coming to check on her. And, that sort of just ties that back. And then they jump into back to the back to the 70s, whatever. Back to the episode in the episode.
Yeah. That's when Vision's like, no, okay, but he looks worried, like he's scared. And then they go to sit on the couch together, and she's like, what should we watch? And as he sits down, if you watch it, and Eric, you're watching it right now, as it get to that scene when he sits down, because she says, what do you want to watch? And he's like, basically like, whatever, and they're holding the babies. The two of them are looking, but she's looking at the television in front of them. He's looking over the television at us.
Oh, I did not know that. He definitely is, though.
And he looks like...
Yeah, he puts his arm around her.
Yeah, and he looks
at her, and then he doesn't look at the TV. You can see that she's looking at the TV. Her eyes are down. He is looking up over it at the watcher.
Yeah. And he's got a look on his face like, help me. Like, I need out.
That's funny. I did not notice that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I caught that right away. I was like, oh, shit.
And what's weird here? Maybe this is just me being dumb, but when this moment happened and I hit the button to see how much time was left, there was over 6 minutes left. And I thought, oh, man, there's a fucking credit scene in here. Where is it?
I heard there was, and there wasn't.
And I just watched it, and I'm like, what? Where the fuck is the thing? Like, what is going on?
I've expected it every time, because you get to the end of the episode, there's 6 or 7 minutes left, and I'm like, there's got to be something.
Yeah.
You end up watching, like, who did the voices when it's in Danish, and who did them in Japanese, and
all the shit you really don't care about. But and I had actually heard that there was an end credit scene, so either there's going to be one in the next episode or just a final episode, which would make sense.
Final episode would make sense, yeah.
I don't think they're just going to throw them in at random now. I mean, I'll leave the credits running just in case, but So what do we think?
Well, I am elated that we've gotten away from just doing the show with tiny bits of MCU injected in between, and now it's I thought they'd do it gradually. I mean, it was a complete flip this episode. Like, there's almost no show. You got to rewatch some of the previous episodes in small pieces, and only as it's relevant to what's happening in the real world. So I'm so glad for that, to be honest, because the format of the first episode kind of made me want to not watch it anymore. Granted, I kept watching it, but I felt it was annoying. It was quirky and weird, and it was like there's not enough real MCU here to keep me interested if they were to keep this up.
Right. And now we're here.
I described it as feeling like an inside joke I wasn't part of.
Yeah.
Even episode 2 is the same way. I mean, there was episode 2 had 1 or 2 small things, and then episode 3 had a couple more, and this was perfectly timed to explain a little bit more of how we got here, give some clues into what's going on, and then it was just enough you can connect all the dots. And now I kind of want to see the show. I want to see their sitcom life again and see what sort of how this plays out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and apparently I got the impression just watching this whole thing that there's actually more sitcom episodes than we get to see as the viewer, because it seemed like
field agents were watching a lot.
And with Darcy's comment, she was like, she made some comments along the way about how, this seems to happen every, whatever it was, X hours or something.
Right. It was the
dishes, and she's
that's right.
She's like, which is a thing.
Yeah. So there's more that we didn't. I was going to say get to see, but that's the wrong wording. More we didn't have to see to explain that there's sort of a longer timeline than just a few episodes. But
there could be a whole season. Like there could have been, a whole season of the 50s.
Yeah.
They could be sitting here watching this entire thing, just trying to figure out what the hell's going on for like days.
Right.
Yeah, which would make sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you guys watch the trailer that I sent you guys?
No.
The one that happened. They dropped it like almost immediately, like over the weekend after this episode, right? So basically, it says something like, the secret's out or whatever the hell it says, and it shows bits and pieces of this episode intermingled among the fake reality that's being made. So kind of like basically saying like now we're going to learn what's going on, and you see like the shot of that we spoke about in the first trailer with Vision and Agnes in the street, how he wakes her up and she asks if she's dead, and he says, no, why? And she says, because you are, and laughs. And there's a couple other shots. You see them in the Halloween costumes, so we're going to get to see Wanda in her full comic-ish.
Yeah.
Costume. Let's take a it's 75 seconds. Let's take a break and watch it real quick.
All right, good.
We can come back and talk about it.
All right, now we're back from our trailer break. So now you guys watched it.
So I see a ton of cool references in the trailer, just as an observation, like Agnes being dressed like a literal fucking witch.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, don't make that any more obvious. I mean, I think we were all headed down that path anyway, and we've said that several times, but
yeah. And I don't know who just said that Vision is representing her sort of subconscious or moral center, because there's a couple where he says, you really didn't see what I just saw, that he's starting to figure it out, even though he's a construct of her reality warp.
Yeah.
He seems to be the one who's questioning all of this stuff.
Yeah, which essentially, if you go back to the comic House of M storyline, he's kind of taking over the Wolverine role from that. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll figure out what he's doing. But he's in the trailer. You see him wake up Agnes, so you're gonna see him probably doing that with a bunch of people, trying to figure out what's going on. And he says something in there. There seems to be a bunch of unsavory characters in Westview. So, and then it starts to show Agnes laughing and a few other people. Dottie is in there. There's a couple of them in there that it cuts to right after that to make you suspicious of some of these characters, you know?
Well, I wonder if that could be they send in other agents to pose as neighbors or something else to try to get information or something else.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot in that. What'd you say, 70 seconds or whatever?
75 seconds, yeah.
75 seconds that sets up the rest of the show. And it's funny, too, because they say something in there, like, if you're not watching WandaVision, you need to do it now because Marvel is back, which is essentially, after this episode, how we all felt. Like the MCU is back in this show. I was going to go with that, but go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we do get to see a very poorly done Scarlet Witch costume in this. It looks like they're maybe doing Halloween.
Yeah, there's a Halloween episode because I read an article where Elizabeth Olsen said how hard she fought for a comic accurate version of the costume. She was like, we're doing, because they were going to tone it down. Like they were going to give her like a headband or something. And she was like, no, we're doing a Halloween episode. I want the full-blown outfit. So she fought for it. So one other reason I love her.
So I don't remember if it was last episode or what that we brought that up, but I guess that's a cool way to do it in this fake reality thing, right? That's pretty clever.
Yeah, so something's definitely really going to escalate in the next few episodes, because there's what, 3 more episodes?
5, 6, 7, 8, 4 episodes.
4 more episodes, yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, 4 more episodes. So there's a lot of shit going to happen here. And I cannot, before we started watching the trailer, there was something I wanted to say about it, but it's gone now, so it'll just have to be gone forever. Oh well, old man brain. But
so they make a reference to a few unsavory characters. That what do you think they're referring to? Because when they say that, they show what's her name, the blonde
Dottie,
and then they show another girl who I'm not sure I recognize. Like she's got there's like a Halloween decoration, looks like a skeleton or something, and she's holding the hand of it up.
Well, at first she's got nothing in her hand, and then it glitches and she's got it in her hand. So it's kind of weird.
But do you know who that is? I don't know that I know who that is.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so maybe a new.
But then it shows Agnes again cackling as a witch.
But I wonder, going back to Dottie for a second, the things from the outside world are what show up in her reality in color. And so I wonder if Dottie's, when she cuts her hand in episode 2, her blood is real.
Yeah.
Or it looks in color to Wanda. And so I wonder if that's some clue that Dottie's somewhere from the outside.
Yeah, maybe another. And Dottie's one of the people that's not on the board, so we don't.
It could be that the speculation is correct and she's Clea or somebody else that's, involved in what's going on to Wanda. That's what I was going to say. There's a shot of Agnes in very 80s exercise gear. The setting that they're in, I saw a still shot of it on a YouTube channel. It does look just like the Full House living room.
Full House, yeah.
Like she's full blown like Kimmy Gibbler in this thing. She looks just like Kimmy Gibbler. So
I'm paused on it right now. It's like the stairway that sort of bends 90 degrees going up from the front door. Like it does look a lot like.
Yeah, like it looks a lot like it. So I think you're gonna full blown. They're gonna go Olsen meta on us and be in Full House.
There's also a Saved by the Bell looking weird thing where like Vision has like a haircut like Zach or something, and he's leaning over to kiss her.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't remember what Saved by the Bell, who the owner of that was, because I think what we determined last time is every single one of these was a ABC owned.
Yeah, but I think the Saved by the Bell is on like
Rocky. That's NBC. Yeah, you're right. It's NBC, so it can't be that. But
it's very 80s-ish.
Yeah, and I also noticed there's one scene where it's like she's sitting in a corner on a chair, like she's being interviewed almost, Wanda. But it looks modern. That reminded me very much of ABC's Modern Family. Have you guys seen that show at all?
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, that might be the reference there. I'm not sure, but that would be much more modern, though, right? That's a 2010s show, so
yeah.
I mean, we have plenty of time to get through it. So episode 3 did not give us. Episode 4 did not give us the 80s. It's obviously coming. We can see it in this trailer. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 left, 4 episodes. We have to cover 80s, 90s, double aughts, and modern. I don't know quite how that would work, but
yeah,
it's still possible to sort of move its way through.
Maybe, or that could just be because she is looking directly at the camera. So that could just be somebody talking to her at that point. Because they are definitely like, in the quote unquote real MCU world. So it could be bouncing back and forth a lot more now.
That's true. Yeah. I would actually almost prefer that, I think.
Yeah, me too.
I also noticed and I don't know if there's any relevance at all, but there's a point that's about maybe 40, 45 seconds in where you see Wanda and you can't tell what she's looking at, but at first it's a yellow light like glowing on her face. And then they cut back slightly and you see a blue light in front of her. Any meaning to you guys what the hell that is?
I would have thought the yellow light might have been like Vision's Mind Stone.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought with that too. And then the blue light, I don't know what the fuck the blue light is.
I don't know.
I mean, we talked about before, Wanda's power stuff has always been red, so that's obviously not what it is, something else.
No. But her powers do come from one of the stones, and it was blue.
The Tesseract,
yeah. So who the hell knows? I mean, it could be all kinds of things. But the trailer does end with the two of them in the living room floating like they're getting ready to go at it.
Yeah, like they get ready to brawl or something.
I went back and I watched one of the very first trailers that they did for this show. And at one point, I think Vision says to her, "This is our home, right?" And she says, "Yeah." And she's like, and he says, "Are we going to fight for it?" and they go flying off. And so I wonder if that's something around there.
Could be. All I know is now I'm fully invested. I can't wait to see what the hell is going to happen on Friday.
Yeah, this was the time they needed to do it to get everyone invested, because everybody, I'm sure everyone was like we are, like, what is this?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. So now all I keep getting, like every episode now, like after 3 and then especially 4, just getting texts from friends. Did you watch it? Did you see that? Yeah. So, yeah. Definitely looking forward to Friday. All right. Well, anybody got anything else on this one?
Nope. I don't think so.
Cool. All right. Well, you guys Let us know what you think of this episode, what your theories are to who is who and what is what and what the fuck is going on. Comment down below, like, subscribe, ring a bell, do all that happy shit for us. Hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on Zach Morris's old cell phone, whatever you want to do. I know, not the same owner, but whatever. And tell us what you're thinking about the show and how much you love it and what's going to happen in the MCU moving forward. And that's all we got for tonight. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Darcy Lewis.
Good night, Beekeeper. Forever.